Hi there, welcome or welcome back. Today we are talking about all the books that I've read in July. I want to apologize for any noise. It seems like the whole neighborhood is doing their gardening today. Maybe because the heat wave has diminished for a little bit right now and it will come back soon. So it's the perfect time to finally address everything that's going on in your garden if you have one. But let's just move on to the books because that's why you are here. Now, at the end of June, I read a couple of short books because I was kind of in need to finish a couple of more books that month, or I try to at least. So I still had a thin book laying around, and that was 20 Love Poems and a Song of Despair by Pablo Neruda. Now, I enjoyed this immensely. It's poetry, if you do not know who Neruda is. And he originally wrote in Spanish, and the wonderful thing about this little book is that you have the Spanish version of his poetry on one side, and then you have the English version on the other page next to it. I'm sorry if I don't make any sense. I'm a bit tired. I'm trying. I'm struggling through. I love this a lot. Actually, I do not love like the descriptions of white female bodies or something like that, which were mostly at the beginning. But besides that, he had some really beautiful poetry in here, which I enjoyed a lot. And I thought it was really great to have the Spanish version next to it because I could compare the way that he wrote it in his language, because in translation you do lose like some alliteration and things like that, or like the build-up of a sentence. But you know, my Spanish isn't good enough to actually read these poems just in Spanish, so I was really grateful for the English translation. I did put some markers in here, I think, for stuff that I wanted to maybe read out a bit. I indicated some of my favorite lines. So here we have in English, you gather things to you like an old road. You are peopled with echoes and nostalgic voices. And that really hit for me. It feels so real and thought through. I love that quote. I would like to read it to you in Spanish as well, but I'm not really great at Spanish, so... And then there is one that I really like, but I think it's one of his most famous quotes, which is, I want to do with you what spring does to the cherry trees. And that's also really beautiful. I'll give it a try in Spanish. Quiero hacer contigo lo que la primavera hace con los cerezos. I hope I didn't butcher that, but that's just really lovely to read. So yeah, if you are into poetry, I would definitely recommend you reading Pablo Neruda. And then I started reading another book, and then I stopped reading that because Heartstopper came in. It is the 6th volume in the series and the final volume in the series. So I just really had to get to that first. I have loved the Heartstopper series a lot. If you don't know it, it is a graphic novel series about Nick and Charlie, and they fall in love, and it's about them falling in love, struggling through being gay in school and with their friends and everything. But it is all very sweet, and it's very sweetly done, and they have friends who are struggling through their own things, and it has been a really good enjoyable series to read. So I was really excited for the last installment, volume 6, and I have to say that I did like the ending of this. It is giving you quite a lot, actually. But what I missed was a bit more focus on the friends and what the friends are going through, because it is all touched upon. You do know what is happening to them, like Tao and Elle, which I adored in the previous volumes. But I would have liked a bit more from them, because this is really, once again, very heavily focused on Nick and Charlie. And I do feel like the first half of this volume could have done with a little bit of tweaking, maybe, because once again they have to face like a problem or an issue and get through that first. And well, you know, it's I don't know, I would have preferred a bit more from the friends, but I do love these two guys and I will miss them. So at the end of this volume, I did feel a bit sad because there will be no future volumes of these two. But if you are into the series, definitely, you know, you probably already have your copy. And then I finished my reread of Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. Now I have to say that the previous time I read this book, I read a different edition. And this time I read this penguin or puffin edition of Little Women. And I discovered that this one is not complete, or, well, at least in the original book you had two books. You have Little Women and you have Good Wives, apparently. And this edition is just Little Women. So this is just the first part in which these girls are young and everything that happens in the beginning of the story. So I ended up just reading Little Women and I enjoyed this very much. If you know it, you know that it is about these four sisters, and they are like all these cute stories about them putting on plays, and Joe writing stories, and them going through like a bit of social conventions and managing them because they are a bit poor, but they are also so very sweet, and it's a very wholesome book. And just this one, like Little Women, is very cute, very sweet, a nice children's book. I think I would have preferred to read this around Christmas maybe. The only thing that bothers me a bit is like when they go into the religious parts, because they aren't quite necessary for me to showcase that people should be good or that they are good people. But despite that, I really like this. It's just that I feel like I have to read Good Wives, which, by the way, not liking the title at all. Not a big fan of that, but I will be reading that because I do remember what happens there, and I do feel like I'm incomplete not reading that part. I do have a feeling though that I am going to like that less, because I did have some thoughts about that part when they are a bit more grown. I remember having thoughts about that when I was reading it the first time a couple of years ago. So yeah, I'll get back to you on that. And then I finally read the whole of the Conqueror saga. I read Bright We Burn, Now I Rise, and I Darken, which I put out of turn here. So let me explain to you what this is about. This is a series written by Kirsten Wright. So let's start with And I Darken. Now, these books are about Lada, who is a girl, and Radu, who is her brother. And they are from Wallachia. Their father is like the dragon or the leader of Wallachia, the country. And he is a bit, well, not the greatest person in the world. He is not really the best leader for Wallachia, because on the one hand he is forming treaties with the Sultan, but on the other hand he wants to be against the infidels, and he is constantly like switching sides. And because of that, the Sultan decides that his children, so Lada and Radu, will have to go to the Sultan and live in his palace. They will be treated very well, but it's like a bit of a guarantee that Vlad will not move against him. So Lada feels a bit betrayed because she is looking up to her father. She is feeling quite a lot betrayed. And she feels like she is the daughter of Wallachia and it is her right to return there. So she is very much against the Muslims and against life at the Sultan. But her brother, who is younger, Radu, he kind of embraces it and he gets into the whole culture, into the whole religion. So we start to get a bit of friction between the brother and the sister as well. And then they get to know Mehmet, and Mehmet is the son of the Sultan, not his true son, well, you know, his biological son, but by like a mistress from the harem. So it would take some stuff for Mehmet to become the first in line to the throne. But yeah, the first book is about them growing up, the three of them forming bonds, the three of them growing into their own person. And I don't want to say too much more about that because I do not want to spoil anything. Because I have to say that I was going into this thinking I would not like this. For some reason, I was a bit prejudiced about this. So I had quite a struggle through the first 100 pages because in the beginning it is written a bit clunky, I have to say. So I felt confirmed in what I thought, but I went through it anyway, and I started to like it more and more. I started to enjoy it quite a lot, and I discovered that it is actually a retelling of, Vlad Dracul, the story of Vlad Dracul, but with a reinterpretation that he would be she. So Lada is actually Vlad Dracul. Moving on to the next book, which was Now I Rise. The brother and sister get separated. So Lada is moving back towards Wallachia, trying to reclaim her place there, while Radu is staying with Mehmet, and he is involved in the war in Constantinople. So the Sultan is moving against Constantinople, and Radu is placed as a spy inside of Constantinople, so he has to act as if he betrayed the Sultan. So we have these two separate stories, but each was interesting in their own right. I personally preferred the one about Constantinople because I wasn't really knowledgeable about that specific war, but it was really interesting to read about, and all the movements they made and the tactics they used and everything like that. And it was really well done. I enjoyed this one quite a lot. And then I moved on to the last volume. In this one, everybody sort of comes back together, or they go towards the same goal, sort of, which is Wallachia once again, but they are on opposite sides now, because we have Lada, who is in Wallachia, and we have Radu, who is with the Sultan. And well, it's interesting to see what happens in here. A lot of stuff happens in here, and it was a lot of fun to see all the things that Lada had thought out, which I cannot talk too much about, but yeah, I actually had a great time reading this series. So yeah, you know, you can always be surprised. And then I actually finished another book in July, which I am very happy about. I did quite some good reading, and that was The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young. And this one is about June Farrow. And in the beginning of the book, she has just lost her grandmother, and we get a whole explanation about how the Farrow women are cursed, apparently, because all of them at one point in their lives start to seemingly lose their mind a bit. They start to see things that aren't there. They start to hear things that aren't there. And to some women this happens later in life, like with her grandmother. It only happened closely to her death when she was older. But June, it is already starting to happen now. And I don't know if I should tell much more, because I'm not too sure if it would spoil. No, I have to tell you a bit more in order to actually talk about this book. So I felt like this book was trying to do three things at once. First off is time travel. Now, if you are like a fan of science fiction and you like your time travel to be possibly realistic, then this is not the one for you. I felt it was kind of vague, to say the least, and you could find plot holes in there. But if you are able to like skip over that or skim over that, then you're fine and you will enjoy that. Then there was the mystery. There is a mystery in here. There is a murder mystery in here, which also is, if you are into detectives and that everything is plotted out really well and you do not see coming what will be the ending, then this one also isn't for you. But if you just like your mystery mixed in, then you're fine. And then the third one is a romance, because if you are into like sort of a single dad trope on a farm with a horse, then you are going to love this. That's just not really my thing personally. But I did have a lot of fun with this book. I have to say that I was reading this while I was on holiday, and I was able to really get into it, which doesn't really happen to me that often, that I can continue reading. So I do feel like I may have rated this one a bit too high on Instagram, but it was because I had such a nice experience reading this book. On its own, I think is maybe along the lines of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which wasn't quite my favorite either. I did like it. There's nothing wrong with the book per se, but it just lacked a bit of thinking through for me. Like more could have been done with that book, and I felt the same for this one. So I enjoyed reading it. It's definitely a lot of fun to read. But if you are starting to think about it, I feel like more could have been done with this one as well. So that was my July. I'm quite proud of this. Quite a stack I went through here. If you have read any of these, please let me know what you thought of them. If you agree with me or if you have any other thoughts, I would be very interested to know. And I hope that your July reading was very productive as well. And I hope to see you soon in a following video. Bye!